And then the next quarter went down. I can make good
Hi, welcome everybody. It's 5 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. Well, it's not a very nice crowd. Good to see everyone. I'm Tyler Ward. With me are fellow select board members Bonnie Tucker and Bill Kennedy. Down at the end of the table, we have Seth McLean, our Department of Public Works Director and Assistant Town Administrator. There's Beth March, our Tax Collector. Nicole McStay is our Town Administrator, and Justine Hansen's taking our minutes this evening. We are on air, so keep that in mind. Tim Bresnick's behind the scenes capturing everything. And these meetings are always archived on our town website. They can be viewed on, all of these meetings are, these select board meetings are videotaped. Or recorded, I shouldn't say taped. Many of us know each other, but I do see some new faces in the room, to me anyway. So if I do call on you, if you have a question, gladly raise your hand, or please raise your hand. I'll gladly pick you, and then just state your name for the record, so Justine can get that in minutes. Tonight's agenda, I'll have to crowd here. I'll have to read it off my phone, so I'm not being rude here. We'll start off with the public hearing pursuant to RSA 41:9-A to consider some amendments to the policy following chapters of the code of Peterborough. They're on the board. Then we have, we'll discuss power rates for FY 2027 for the Peterborough Power Committee-Municipal Community Power Rates. That's a mouthful. We're going to discuss utility rates, review some minutes from March, and then vote to recommend a couple new warrant articles. We had some petition warrant articles come in. Have a police officer to appoint. That's exciting for our town, by the way. Chief's always at least one officer short. Authorize, Elm Street. Anybody here lives on Elm Street or Grove Street? We have a couple bridge projects coming up, and then a lead service line inventory grant agreement. With that.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing pursuant to RSA 41:9-A to consider amendments to the following chapters of the code of the Town of Peterborough, and that would be Chapter 147 Fire Department, 161 Municipal Sewer System, 162 Municipal Water System, 166 Recreation Facilities Rules and Regulations, and 174 the Right to Know chapter. And you'll all learn about the right to know laws of New Hampshire. How none of us can speak to each other outside these meetings. Yeah, very strict. You had a question? Yes.
Yes. I would like to propose that this hearing be placed after the proposal that I'm presenting on changes in the utility rates. This code includes the current rates, which we would be voting on, and I'm proposing new rates. And it seems odd to sequence it this way. And I think, I don't want to assume, but I think most of these people here are here for hearing my proposal.
Okay.
If I could.
Well, I would like to say that I was gonna recommend that we didn't vote on your new rates yet, because we're hearing it for the first time tonight. However, the rates that we did vote on back in June have not been codified correctly, and that's why we're adding this language to the chapter.
Correct. So the vote on the water and sewer rates don't require a public hearing. That's a vote of the select board as they're in their role as overseers of the water and sewer systems.
Right.
So What I'm doing, what I'm requesting as far as the municipal water and sewer system code book chapters is to correct some language. So these haven't been touched in quite a long time. There's a lot of outdated language in them. It doesn't necessarily need to change the water and sewer rates. The rates were already voted on. You could pass over that, or we can make a correction to that. It doesn't require another code book hearing to make that correction. So if the board were to vote tonight or on another night to change the rates, I can go back in and just change the rates in the code book. To be perfectly honest, I forgot to change them in the code book last summer because at that time we were short-staffed in my office and I was trying to juggle far too many responsibilities. And so it just slipped my mind to go in and change it. So really the purpose of the public hearing is to change everything else in those chapters, not necessarily the rates.
Great. That's good to hear, actually, because we'll hear feedback from everybody. We'll hear your presentation. The original, give us a moment, sir. I saw a hand go. The original proposal back in June that we did vote on as a board took a year, over a year.
Over a year. It was closer to 2.
Studying, and we had an outside company come in and develop that model for us. So there was a lot, I know our finance director worked a lot on that model. So, but we're all hearing from people that are concerned about their water rates. So it's an important topic we definitely have to discuss and revisit. And we're looking forward to your presentation.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out what we're doing here. So are we voting on putting the current rates in the code?
You
just explained.
Yeah, you can vote on the entire chapter and just not that particular section. You could vote on the entire chapter, including updating those sections, and then hold off and vote again on rates in the future. You could vote on rates tonight. The rates are not tied to the code book amendments.
Right.
Code book amendments are separate. Yeah. In this one instance. So only because you're overseers of the water and sewer.
Yeah, because I did look at those sections of the code. The sewer has no rates in them.
Yep.
And the water rate goes back really far.
Yes.
So it's not the current rate, it's not the rate before that, it's the rate before that that goes back to the 1990s. So we're correcting a very old thing right now, which seems a little odd for what we're covering today.
So we can skip that portion of that when we get to that chapter. Sure. Yeah.
I'm very anxious to hear your presentation.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to vote on rates.
Hi, can I just make a suggestion? I think all of us are here to really hear about Bonnie's proposal.
Of course.
It would be really nice if we could, especially since it's St. Patrick's Day, if we could do it first. And and if it's possible to have a democratic vote on who would like to see it first, we can do that.
No, that's not how we run our select board meetings. That's nice and all, but and I appreciate that comment. But we'll go through our agenda, and we certainly want to hear from anybody that has information to share with Bonnie's rates. I don't know if everybody has watched this whole process. If people have watched our select board process for the past 2 years. But we want to make sure we do hear from everybody, and we will get to Bonnie's presentation. Right? Do you want to do that first? Can we change up the agenda?
Yeah, you can. It's been, we're required by state law to warn any code book amendments for a specific time and post that in the paper. But it's up to the select board. As far as the night, you can say open it and then continue it for later in the meeting if you would like to do that. However, I will say there's a number of town staff here specifically to speak on these code book, some of these. So the fire chief is here, the recreation director is here. I don't think that this is going to take particularly long to go through. We probably talk longer now than we will about the actual text changes that are being proposed.
I assume. Okay, I made a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second. All those in favor to open the public hearing? Aye. Do we want to, now, I'll ask Do you want to make, anyone want to make a motion to continue this?
I would like to continue it.
And then we'll discuss the water rates and then have staff stick around and come back and talk about these other chapters. Can we have to do them all in one public hearing? Can we wait on the?
You could hear the fire department, rec department, right to know sections now and continue the water and sewer sections until another time. Yeah, you could actually do that.
Can we include Bonnie's presentation within the public hearing?
I suppose you.
And I'm asking this because there are legal ramifications of doing things wrong in these situations.
I mean, they appear more related than they actually are. So the vast majority of the code book changes in both the water and sewer, as you know from having reviewed them, are really updating it to include specific references to the actual code that must be followed when installing service lines and things like that. They're not specific to the water and sewer rates. The inclusion of the sewer rates, I don't know how it got deleted, to be quite honest. It was deleted at some time, but there used to be a section way back when that had the water and sewer rates listed, so that just needed to be added back to it.
Okay.
It's up to you. I mean, as far as just, to allow the staff to leave, who don't need to be here for the entire meeting, I would suggest taking up recreation and fire department now, at least, right to know, and perhaps just postpone the water and sewer until after the presentation, since we're going to be here for that.
Yeah, let's do that. That's a good recommendation. Are you
There's
okay with
nothing
that?
controversial about the code changes.
Yeah,
It should take just a few minutes.
right. Do you have a question, sir?
Can the select board vote you three
Just
on
state your name for the.
Emmerich Zepp?
Thanks, Emmer.
Can the select board vote out of you three, not us, on skipping to Bonnie's presentation and going over that first? I think you
We
can.
just discussed that whole.
Yeah, but I think you three can
Scenario.
vote.
They're not going to.
What? You can.
Okay.
I think you should.
As chair, I've never had to do this before, but I'm going to say, as chair, we're going to follow the recommendation that our town administrator just suggested. And we'll do a couple of the other departments. It'd be great for other people to hear what actually happens in the town. This could be a good experience for everybody in the room. So let's do that. Chief Walker, are you here? Hey, welcome.
Trying to hide from security.
Well, we'll see how quickly this goes. I don't think anybody's going to be that upset about it. It's, yeah. Hi.
All right, hi, how are you, Tyler?
Welcome.
Excuse me. For those who may have had an opportunity, I'm just gonna stand way out of the way here. For those who may have had an opportunity to look at this whole red line version online, it really comes down to a couple of very simple things. One
Can we have,
is,
hello, excuse me, can we have some, it's hard to hear Chief Walker. I'd appreciate if there was no talking amongst people while people are presenting. We are conducting town business here. Thank you, Chief.
no problem.
I'm sorry.
Come to the front.
One whole section was removed from the code. That is the section around the fees for the municipal fire alarm system. We have a municipal fire alarm system that is being decommissioned in around July or August of this year. That's related to moving into the new building. We would have about $500,000 to move the new system in, and for the number of buildings that it serves, it really wasn't cost effective to do that. So that section has been removed. As for permits and plan review and fees, those sections are related to updating. We've included now the full list of permits that the fire department provides, as well as moving the fees from out of the actual text to an appendix. So in the future, whenever there are fee changes, which we review those every couple of years for departments around us, whenever there are fee changes, the select board can vote, and that's just a change in that appendix, which shows the fee schedule, as opposed to having to go into each individual section and change it. And then probably the most significant change is the addition of a fireworks antenna right ordinance. So the state of New Hampshire, I almost said Commonwealth, flashing back to Massachusetts. The state of New Hampshire allows individual municipalities to establish their own ordinances around the use of what are called consumer fireworks or Class C fireworks. Peterborough has never had one of those ordinances in place. Several times annually, there are folks, and any of you who are active on social media will see the conversations around the use of fireworks and, people using fireworks at random hours of the day, days of the week, and so forth, that can be disconcerting to both our residents and their pets, and quite frankly, disturbing. So the Peterborough, this came up last summer as a concern brought forth by a couple of residents in a request for the select board to look at it. So Nicole and I did sort of a survey of communities around us, some similar communities, larger communities, to look at what they had. And the model that we settled on is sort of the best one to guide us by was an ordinance the town of Antrim has in place, that they've had in place since 2002. And what Antrim's ordinance doesn't do is it doesn't necessarily restrict the use of fireworks per se. It sets some guidelines. So under the ordinance, anybody will have the ability to, I want to pull this up here, anybody will have the ability to utilize fireworks on Friday or Saturday evenings between the hours of 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. and on New Year's and July 4th. So that's just sort of guaranteed by right, if you will. Anybody wishing to use fireworks or tannerite outside of those hours will have to fill out a permit. And really the purpose of the permit is to make sure that the individual who is going to be using those fireworks is more than familiar with the rules, but also so that the police department and fire department have some knowledge this is being done. We have a draft of the permit here, which we've created, and one of the things on the permit is it really says the applicant should make every effort to notify neighbors prior to the display, because that really seems to be the problem, is when you have these, on July 4th, you might expect fireworks. New Year's Eve, you might expect fireworks. But on, Tuesday, August, whatever, it might be kind of random to have fireworks going off. So that is one of those things, is to help sort of do that. Our envisioning for this is the individual could download the permit, fill it out, email it, drop it off. There's a 72-hour before requirement just to give us time to approve it, notify the police department it's happening, and give the individual time to notify their neighbors. So hopefully they in their best faith will do that. But the other thing it does too is it ensures that the individual who is lighting the fireworks off is familiar with the RSAs in New Hampshire around safe distances from objects, not to do it when there are severe fire dangers, red flag, class 4 or 5 days. And it gives the town now, because we have our own ordinance, a method to, I don't hate to say penalize, but really enforce what is common sense around the use of fireworks. First offense is a written warning, second offense is a $250 fine, third offense would be a $500 fine, and the loss of the ability to fill out fusion permits. So those are really the only changes in the fire department's portion of the code book. Any questions?
I've got a couple of
Sure.
questions for the chief. First of all, is tannerite considered a Class C firework?
Tannerite is considered, it's not a firework, but it is considered it's a consumer, it's an explosive, it's a binary explosive. So you can walk down to Peltier Sports in Jaffrey, buy your little thing of tannerite and go to town with it.
So we could restrict its use at some future date?
Yes, it is, well, it is included in this, so tannerite does fall under this, so it's only the 6P to 9P, 6P to 11P on Fridays and Saturdays, or, again, notifying your neighbors and looking at that.
I didn't see any limit on the amount of tannerite?
That's actually, there is, I don't know what is off the top of my head, somebody, Cody, you may know off the top of your head, but there is a limit in RSA as to how much you're supposed to use, yes.
I think it's
Yeah, there
100
is.
pounds.
And it's quite spectacular if you go over the limit.
Going on to a different subject,
Yeah.
I noticed that you have solar array permits.
Yes.
But you don't have, is it separate fee for added batteries?
We don't actually do the batteries. The batteries are considered part of the electrical components and electrical system. Our inspection for the solar panels, the fire code specifies for building-mounted panels setback from the edges of the buildings and the ridge to ensure adequate access to fire service.
Right.
And on ground-mounted panels, it requires that there be an area of clear vegetation around and under the panel. So that's what we verify that for plans and do the inspection to ensure that's been met.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Jared.
Yep. Jared Chisholm, for the record. Question I have, of the permits, is the permit for fireworks required on 4th of July and New Year's, or is it only on the Friday and Saturday?
So we've gone back and forth. Town of Antrim only requires them for periods where they are outside of their hours.
Okay.
In our discussion, we'd like to try starting with it being required for everything. Again, just to ensure that people are reminded of what the regulation is, the courtesy to notify the neighbors and so forth. We're trying to make this process as easy as you can. Literally, you can email it to us, stop off, pay your $5 and pick it up. So we would like to make that, but we felt that it was important to make sure, at least in the beginning, that everybody has a chance to look at this and actually see what the rules and requirements are.
Great question. Thank you. Anyone else? No other questions about fireworks? All right.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, now, I make a motion that we accept this chapter as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Great. Now, next one,
Recreation?
recreation. Is Craig Fraley here?
Craig is here.
Keep it in mind.
Welcome, Craig Fraley,
Thank
Director
you.
of the Recreation.
Thanks for having me. Glad everybody came here to
Yeah.
talk about recreation. Yeah, so we have in our it's 166, we just want to adjust some fees, bring some fees up to date. So our first, kind of, if we go down the line, we're going to start with the community center. And we'd like to update those fees because we have a nice newer building and utilities are going up and everywhere, so.
You could just say, just a note, there's a couple of changes before that.
Oh, sorry.
That's because they got missed when we did, the last time we did these fees. So Craig caught that, we made those changes, but the board's already voted on them. So that's why he's not discussing them right now.
Yes, sorry, I missed
No,
that.
go ahead.
So in the community center, we want to increase fees. Mostly, it's about $10 per hour, but we're kind of going down here. So the dining room, we want to go from $30 to $40 per hour for commercial or private and commercial use, and then nonprofit would be $35 an hour. Outside grounds, we'd keep the same. The kitchen, we find people usually have to rent that with the dining room, so we didn't want to increase those because it's kind of an add-on to what they're already paying. In the gymnasium, we're currently at, I believe, $30 an hour for private use and $40 for commercial use, so we just want to go 45 and 60, which is kind of, it's still less than the going rate for other gymnasiums in the area to rent from. And then $35 an hour for the nonprofit organization, which currently is $25 an hour. As you can see, the $25 per hour, we do charge ourselves to use that building, so that's what that Town of Peterborough business activities use is. Conference room, which is just a small meeting room, we're going to go from $10 an hour to $20 an hour for the nonprofit organization. And then we're increasing for our multi-room packages. Just, it was $90 per hour to use basically 3 rooms, and we want to go up a little bit on that, but still make it, affordable for birthday parties and those sorts of things. So the multi-room price, $135 per hour. And we're on the next page. And then the gym, dining room, kitchen would be $155 for 2 hours, $185 for 3 hours, and $215 for 4 hours. And then, yeah, so that's the the community center. One thing to note on that is we don't want to do that right away. We're asking that goes into effect on September 1st, just so we can give our longtime renters time to plan for that, and so we're not just changing it suddenly on them. For the pond, we're increasing. Last year we increased our boat rentals to $7 per hour, and that was approved last year at the Selectmen's meeting. And then we want to add this $85 per season pass for boat rentals. And then the other big one, so residents pay nothing unless they get an additional sticker for $10, but non-residents, we sell $100 non-resident stickers per year, and we want to increase that fee for the non-residents. So we're going from $185 to $210 per each sticker. So, and really we're set. Last year at $185, we sold out in 3 weeks, and it was not a problem. So we feel we can go up again on that, and we'd rather charge non-residents for the upkeep of Cunningham Pond rather than charging the residents for it, so that's why we did that.
Yeah, so Craig, why are those areas there yellowed out? Like, what is that about?
So I was gonna get to that next.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So that hadn't been updated. Those rates changed in 2024, and it hadn't been updated. But basically, daily admission for the pool is $5 for residents, $10 for non-residents. Seasons pass individual 25 and 50, and then a family seasons pass is 75 and 100. And if you look at the old book, there was also like a 25-time visit, a 15-time visit, and we just took those out because it got really confusing for our staff to keep track, and we found that the seasons pass was a better option anyway, so.
And can people pay online before they go to the pool for these things, or how are people paying?
People, they have to go,
Orders?
for the seasons pass, they can pay online ahead of time, but for daily admission, they pay at the pool,
At the pool.
and they can pay cash or credit card. And same at the pond, we take cash and credit card.
I have a quick question. Have you coordinated these fees at all with the library? Because there's a lot of...
That's, we did look, because the library was charging a lot more than we were for our meeting rooms, so
Right.
we were equaling them out a bit. Yeah.
Good. Consistency.
I see a hand.
Cody Belwell. With the daily admission being 5, 10, 25, 50, could we make more money on the non-residents? You go to 50 instead of keep it all, so they pay 50% more?
We
For the
could,
seasons?
I think it'd be a hard sell for the pool. We don't get as many non-residents for that.
Always trying, that's great. Jared?
Yep, Jared, just good. Have y'all considered there's a household resident for the season pass, but have you considered a household resident for a daily admission? But thinking of families that have many kids, I could see where at $5 each could quickly add up.
We find that a season's pass, $25 for
Fair.
a season's
That's
pass
fair,
is
yeah, fair.
a pretty good deal.
Fair.
And that season pass can be bought at any time during the season, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
And does the household pass have a limit on how many people in the household?
It's up to 5,
With 5, okay.
yeah.
Great.
And then I believe it's $10 per additional member.
Anyone else? That's it? Sure, I'll make a motion to accept the amendments to the Recreation Department chapter. What was the next one?
The only other one, aside from water and sewer, is the right to know chapter. Would you like to consider that?
Let's wait on that one.
Okay.
Let's have your presentation. Thank you for your patience. This stuff's important. This is important. So.
Nicole, can I have that? Can you pass that? Thank you. Okay, so I am proposing a change to the water and sewer rates, but also importantly, the structure, and I'll talk about that. So the water and sewer operation costs have increased. The biggest driver of that has been the new Cold Stone Spring Well bond, and that was really the trigger for us to relook at the rates in June of last year. So water and sewer costs are predominantly fixed costs. So this is true, generally speaking, across all municipalities, and also true for us. So about 80 to 90% of the costs that we incur to run the water and sewer operations are fixed. So fixed meaning no matter how much you're using, the costs are going to be there. So if you're using very little water, you're not saving us costs. All users pay a proportion of the fixed costs for access. This is just the ability to turn the faucet on or flush the toilet once. This is what I refer to as fixed revenue. So this is everyone's contribution to that sizable fixed costs. Water conservation is rates that are applied to volume of use. And that's what I refer to as variable revenue. And that can be done a couple of different ways. One is to apply a higher fixed rate to the volume of use, or you can do the tiered rates as we have currently. All users can conserve, and all users have limitations to how much they can conserve. And we talk about this, I talk about this, and think about it as elasticity and inelasticity. So elasticity means I care about how much I'm paying, and I have the ability to change the volume of my use, and I choose to use less. So if I can choose to use less and I have the ability to use less, then I'm elastic. I can kind of shift. But there's also inelasticity, which means that I may or may not want to pay less, but the structure of my situation, whether it's an organization or my family, I cannot shift, or I cannot shift very much. And that's how I think of it, and economists think of it as inelasticity. So part of what we have to think about here when we think about conservation is where can people shift and where can people not shift? And we have to take that into consideration. And so there are a lot of goals that must be prioritized and balanced when we're setting rates. The most important of these is having a stable revenue that meets expenditures. And so if you have significant proportion of the cost being fixed, you have to have a stable revenue source to meet those fixed costs. So one of the things that happens, and this has happened across the country with many municipalities, is they've implemented conservation approaches with their rates, tiered and not tiered, either raised as fixed or tiered. And what can happen is, and this has happened to municipalities, is that initially they bring in a lot of revenue, but then there is some elasticity. So then people start cutting back, and that's the variable revenue, then really impacts and can destabilize the revenue stream that's needed to meet the fixed costs. So this vertical situation here between stable revenue and conservation promotion is called the conservation conundrum, where actually you can be kind of working against yourself if you're not careful. And municipalities have had to adjust after putting in conservation rates because it destabilized their revenue to meet their fixed costs. I'll talk a little bit about this more when I get into the graphs. I also want to mention two other really important goals that must be balanced, and that is affordability and economic development. So affordability, this is trying to really be thoughtful about making things affordable across the full spectrum of use, considering where things are inelastic, and also taking into consideration our master plan and what we value. And we value in our master plan the retention of younger people and families. Larger families may be more inelastic in that they can only cut back so much. Also affordability for our businesses and our restaurants who operate on very thin margins. And we need to think about their affordability as well as economic development. We don't want to set rates so high in the range where they operate that we disincentivize having businesses come. So these are all the different goals that have to be prioritized and balanced. So I've laid out kind of a list here of these goals it's part of what I'm attempting to do here. Achieve stable revenue that meets expenditures. Affordability, apply increased costs equitably across the full range of volume use. Really trying to be supportive of not only individuals but families of all sizes and our town businesses that we value. And to eliminate across the board the disproportionate impact on multi-unit single meter situations. economic development, attract and maintain our existing businesses, and certainly we can have conservation and incorporate them as a signal to conserve. We can do all of these things. So I'm going to go through my proposal. Up in the upper left-hand corner is what we had prior to June of last year. We had a base charge and we had a variable rate that was applied once a consumer hit 750 cubic feet. And then we went to this tiered rate over here in the green, where we have the base rate, which went down. Then we have the tiered 2, 3, and 4. And you can see the volumes associated with those tiers. And my proposal is to change the structure such that we have a base rate that is higher, that addresses the increased fixed costs that we've all incurred with our new well and other cost increases that we have experienced. All of us who use water from the municipality and the sewer must be able to kind of equitably pay for increased fixed costs that we're incurring. And then back to one tier at 750, starting at 750. But it's higher than what we had before because we do have to pay for these increased costs. So I'm going to show you 3 graphs just to try to explain a little bit about what this proposal is attempting to do. So the green line, so on the left is dollars paid. On the, going along the base is the amount of use in cubic feet per quarter. The green line is the current, the blue line is the original before June of 25, and the red dotted is my proposal. I'm going to spend a little time just talking about the left-hand side of the graph where the lines start. You can see that the base charge is different in all 3. So we were at about $111 a quarter base charge. We went down in base charge with the current rate. And I'm proposing that we all, maybe not all walked into the voting booth, but we did vote for a well and to have a bond. We all should pay somewhat more. And this is the base charge. This is about $30 up from where it was originally. Now, the point at which the line starts going up is when the variable revenue starts. So one of the things that's important when you're increasing the base charge, you want to be really careful about not starting the variable rate too soon, because otherwise you can have a big impact on cost on the lower users. So the sort of the flat line piece before you start going up is called the consumer allowance, or customer allowance, so that you don't start paying your variable rate. So you have a base charge, that's just to turn on your faucet, flush the toilet once, and then you get this allowance so that otherwise, for instance, if the base charge went up here and then you started the variable rate at 300 or 500, this goes up really fast and really hurts people down in this area. So a lot of times municipalities, when they need to increase their base rate, they make sure they have a consumption allowance to just try to kind of soften the situation right here. So then you can start seeing the gray lines represent the tiers. So this is just the first one for the base charge. Then there's one that happens right here, and you can start to see how the lines start to diverge. And then, oh, and one last thing I want to say about that graph. the families, so families have shared their bills with me, and the families, depending upon the size of the families, are kind of like in here. They're in here. So, and some of them are up in here, depending upon the size of the families. So you can start seeing how larger families, especially on this end here, start to really get hit. And then the next slide expands the cubic feet amount that's being used. And you can see the final tier, which is at 6,000 cubic feet. So what's important about this graph is that the restaurants in our town, their usage starts, the smallest one that I could identify starts at 6,600 and then goes up to about 15,000. So this is where our restaurants are, all our independent restaurants. And what I understand about our independent restaurants is that the main use of water is their dishwashers, which they have to use and have to turn at a certain rate to serve the people that come over the evening or over the day. And that can't be changed. That's just like a function of their business model. And so that makes them very inelastic. So the challenge that we have is that the restaurants are all in the highest tier. And don't really probably can ever get out of it. Because they're inelastic. So if we really value our restaurants, I think we're basically just giving them a much higher rate without them being able to really conserve. And then going way out, you can see how it really diverges. And you can see throughout this whole thing that people are going to be paying more for sure. But it's just how much and how high that last tier is and the impact on our community. And Kate, I know that you shared here in this forum your bills, so I think I can. I think I can share that Kate's bill is about 90,000. It was about 90,000 cubic feet. Okay. Yeah, cubic feet.
Dollars.
Yeah, not dollars. Yeah, not dollars. And so actually it's even off this chart, but you get a feeling for where kind of she would be kind of right, sort of right up here. I think the situation there is very challenging to be in that. She'll never get out of that highest tier. Yes, some years will be dry and some years will be wet. So there will be variability around this, but she'll never get out of the highest tier. And so I think we really need to think about the impacts that these tiers are having on our community. She just so everyone knows, they only water the greens.
Everything else is brown.
So I think if we want our local community golf course, it's fairly inelastic, the situation that they're in. And so we have to be cognizant of that. So this is a table just to sort of summarize where we've been on this journey. Our costs went up. We originally had a fixed base charge of $111.98 per quarter. And our costs went up, our fixed costs went up, but in our current rate, they went down in the base charge. So I am proposing that we all are benefiting from a new well with a bond. We should all pay more. And so I'm proposing $30 more per quarter for all of us to be able to turn on the faucet and know that we can get water and flush the toilet. And then this in here, this kind of section in here are the families, different size of families. And then this here, so I'm comparing, so you can see original, current, proposed. I'm just comparing proposed to current. This is where the restaurants are, right in here, 6,000 to up to almost 20,000. And then there are the bigger businesses down here, and then Kate, you're down at the bottom right now. So,
Donnie, can you go back to that last slide? I can't see the left-hand side column. What is only $1,800? And the difference column, what is the lead?
The very bottom line?
That's last one, that's water only.
that's water only.
Water only, oh.
Yeah, it's water only, and I did it water only because they only use water.
Gotcha.
So I wanted to just be able to show that for the
Okay.
golf course.
From this, it just looked odd going 3,000, 7,000.
And then, yeah,
as I can see.
yeah. I didn't know initially that they only have water, but then I wanted to reflect that. So I believe with this, we are attempting to achieve stable revenue. Oh, one thing I did want to bring up, actually, sorry, I want to go back to one thing that I didn't, sorry, don't make you dizzy from that. One of the things I also wanted to mention about this increase in the base charge is that with municipalities and the percent of the costs that are fixed, there's a lot of this revenue instability can be a very big issue. And so when we moved the base charge down, and I assumed 80%, like 80 to 90% fixed charge. I was just kind of being sort of on the conservative side, say 80% fixed charge, fixed costs. If you look at what percentage of those fixed costs, of 80% of the fixed costs, is coming in from this, from the fixed revenue, it's 12.9% of our fixed costs. And Standard & Poor's would downgrade you if you were at 12.9%, and they do that. The industry has been really trying to aim for at least 30% coming from the base charge of the fixed rate. But as they implemented conservation tiers, they started targeting more towards the base charge being 40 to 50%, just to make sure that the revenue is stable and the fixed costs can be covered. So this right here takes us to 12.9% of our fixed costs. This original line took us to 28.6% of our fixed costs, and my proposed is 37.2. So around the industry target, especially given the conservation tiers, but even without that, it's generally what municipalities target. So we just want to make sure that we have a stable revenue coming from the fixed cost contribution. And that is what I'm hoping to achieve with this proposal. I believe it does check the boxes of what I hope to achieve here. I think that, there can be some discussion about the exact rate that I'm proposing. There are some thoughts about, what is the specific target? Will this get us there? We just have to remember a couple of things. One is it's like this is very hard to predict because of dry years, wet years, and also elasticity and inelasticity. This is very, very hard to predict. What's most important to me about this proposal isn't so much exactly what this rate is, but that we change the structure to have it set up this way so that we more equitably charge our customers in a way that preserves and supports our values as a community, for ensuring we have stable revenue, that we have affordability across the full spectrum of use, that we support our families of all sizes, our town businesses, particularly the restaurants who are inelastic and must use the water that they use. There are buildings that we know, we have a meter program, but there are buildings we know that won't support that, or would be cost prohibitive to do so. This would eliminate that disproportionate impact. And then making sure that we don't disincentivize businesses from coming to this town. And we still will have a variable and higher than we had variable cost, which will promote conservation. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
I think I'd like to hear from Bill, see if he has any questions. Thank you, Bonnie. That was a great presentation, actually. It really helped. I think it helps explain a lot of what's going on. Hopefully other people have looked at the previous model and all the meetings we went through to come up with where we are and the presentation from that group that worked on it. I can't remember the name, consulting firm. Did you have any questions?
First of all, I want to commend you. That was a very, very nice presentation, and you put a lot of time and energy into it. You're asking us to abandon the multi-tier system, essentially, revert back to the single tier. And I worry that we will be generating enough revenue in order to support our. So I would like to take a look at how this all affects on our revenue. Do we have that analysis?
Yeah, so, and we can discuss, more specifics about it. So I used originally the target that we had set for the original tiered approach. I did back out certain revenue streams that were stable over time, water hydrants, backflow testing, et cetera. I did try to adjust for volatility, if you will, in septic. So I looked across 5 years of those and kind of took the lowest one of the 5 to try to account for that. But I did net out some of these revenue charges because they do come in, and I'd hate for users to have to pay on top of what already is coming into also costs. So, but, we can have a more detailed discussion about that if you like.
Well, you say that there's a disproportionate impact on multi-user single meter situations. So in a single meter situation, they'll pay the base rate, right? But then they'll pay a lower rate on usage.
Well, what happens with the single meter is that they will all pay a proportion of that additional base charge. But what happens is, because there's so many users, they end up in the highest tier. And then when you divide up that highest tier charge and you apply it to each individual unit, it's a much higher cost than it would have been if they had their own little house. So that's the issue, and we are trying to address that with the meter program, but part of the challenge with it is that we have very old buildings that weren't really built for single meter, and so there will be some that can do it, but there will be some that cannot, either cost prohibitive or just constructurally very challenging. I don't know if that's a word.
That's one way to put it.
When we're usually the board asks questions and we hash things out, and then we open it up to the public. When we were considering the initial rate change, a big part of that was planning for the future and unexpected challenges with the water system, with the sewer system. You know, how many times this winter did a water main break? That's another cost for that water department. And then we have a fund balance that was really depleted in the way we used to charge for our water system. And where in this model does that account for some padding of that so that we're not caught off the hook and have to either, borrow money or dip into something else? Because the model has been in recent years in all of our budgeting, the budget committee can attest to that, is planning for the future. We're socking away money here for vehicles and for buildings and that sort of thing. And so this fund balance for the water sewer department is something we really need to consider.
Yeah.
And that was a big driving factor in changing the water rates with the new well, to capture some of that. So
Yeah,
where does it sit with that?
Yeah, so actually I have a different view of that experience in June of 2025. When we reviewed the budget and the model to make the decision, what the focus was for me and what I talked about in the meeting was that we had incurred additional costs, additional fixed costs that we had to cover. And there was an interest in over time increasing that beyond the first decision to build up the fund balance. But what I specifically brought up in that meeting was that we would look to an asset plan to be done where we would really understand and know how much more we need to sock away so that we're not doing it blindly. So my understanding of what I voted for and what I talked about was that initially it was to cover our additional expenses that we were hitting from the well. And also, we hadn't been actually changing the rates for a long time. So we had to be able to meet our costs and not continue to deplete.
Sure.
So that was my experience of that decision.
Yeah, and I think, we all felt the hit when our rates all went up, right? I mean, we all did. And then another portion of the discussion was really focusing on the people in that lower end that did pay the minimal. We're getting charged, I guess they'll be charged double now, or almost 3 times. Like if it was $50 for.
Well, but let's
It'll be a
look
$30
at.
increase
It's a
over original.
$30 increase, so let's go back, let's go back.
No,
Let's go
well,
back to this.
I just want to remind that so that was part of the focus too, was the people that were using really very little water. And the concern that they were single family or a couple and the affordability in that realm. So
Yep.
and that was the input that went to those consultants when they did the tiered model.
Yeah, and I guess what I would, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
What was interesting for me, and I want to acknowledge it in the room, and I think I've acknowledged it to many of you, I didn't fully appreciate and understand how municipal systems work. It's not my expertise. And so what I didn't fully appreciate was the fixed cost nature of these systems. And that those really low users are not having any impact on the cost of the law. And we all incurred, just like when we just all decided we wanted a fire station, we're all paying for it. We're all paying for that bond. We're all paying more for that bond. And we decided we wanted a well, and it was a good decision. But we all have to pay for that bond. I don't see it as a difference. And especially now, more thoroughly, in my mind, understanding that those low users are really not having any impact on the cost of the system. So what happens on the low end is you have lots of users down there who originally were paying 111 per deliver. Now we have a bond and we have to meet it. And so I'm proposing $30 more. And I don't think personally, in hindsight, that we should have taken it down.
Okay, do you want to add anything as administrator before we open up to the public?
Sure, I'd add a few things. So just to back up, there are a few things to keep in mind is that even though they're tied to consumption, they're tied together. The sewer, the reason why sewer went up is different from the reason why the water rates went up. The water rates went up again because of the bond. And after we started making bond payments, we weren't bringing in enough money to meet the bills without dipping into the cash balance, the fund balance in the water account. On the sewer side of things, there was many more years where we were not bringing in enough money because we had an existing bond, plus the cost of just treating the sewer, treating wastewater was growing year over year for many reasons. Some of them were related to statutory changes, some of them were related to the cost of chemicals going up, but also, again, the bond payments that were on the wastewater treatment plant. We had a significant fund balance in sewer, and so for many years, we were slowly just pulling down that fund balance on the sewer side. When we started to approach the Coldstone Springs vote, and remember that vote took place in May of 2019, as we started to approach that, we decided as a group, Rodney Bartley was the town administrator at the time, that it would make sense, rather than making any rate changes to the sewer, to just allow it to carry forward until after the vote on Coldstone Springs, and then the board would look at developing a rate model, hiring on a company to look at it, and to address a few goals. One was to have a rate model in place that would allow the select board to set goals for the rates. The obvious goal being meet the budget. Another goal would be future planning. You know, how much would you like to set aside for capital improvement plans? Another goal was provided a framework to set conservation goals. That had been something that a number of people had requested from the select board and town staff for many years, but we didn't have a model that would allow us to set any kind of conservation goals. And then thirdly, allow us to look at a bit more granular at who is being impacted by the rates, and to try to reduce the rates if possible as we are able to identify smaller households, because we know that those people tend to be older and tend to have fixed incomes. So then we got to the vote at May 2019 town meeting. The town meeting decided to move forward with the Coldstone Springs project and to take out a bond that would cover the approximately 30% of the project that wasn't otherwise, or Peterborough's share of the project, that wasn't otherwise covered by grants. Then COVID happened. When COVID happened, the select board decided to put a pin in the whole rate change, rate model conversation, and just let's move forward for now. Let's not, put any stress on anybody. Let's not increase rates, even though we know they're going to have to go up. And so for about 2.5 years, we just held things knowing that every quarter we are drawing down that cash balance more and more. Then we did bring on the consulting group that did develop the rate model. The rate model took, I want to say it was over a year to develop. Beth was involved in almost every single meeting in developing that. And then once that was developed, we began presenting it to the select board in 2024. It was late summer, early fall of 2024. The select board met with the engineers who developed it. They had a lot of really good questions. We went back and forth over the course of the fall, winter. We worked on developing what would become the 3-tiered rate system and the rates that were needed just to meet the current budgets for both of the systems, both water and sewer. It was not seeking to do much more than that. with the exception of trying to rebuild very slowly the sewer budget, the sewer's fund balance rather, because it had been so dramatically depleted. By the time we had a rate model ready to go, we were very close to town meeting. The select board asked to, again, let's postpone this until June after town meeting. We'll take it out then, and that's when Bonnie joined the select board and it was moved forward. So many, many months, years of discussion went into this. But we did provide a rate model that took all those things into account. The engineers also put together the rate model that takes into account the differences between the wet and dry years that you spoke about, Bonnie, and tries to, hit an average in between. So, because it is unpredictable, the revenues are incredibly unpredictable. And so by hitting that average, and by having enough cash in the fund balance to be able to cover when you have years that are particularly wet or are very dry to the point where you have to have an outdoor watering ban, you have some money that you're able to draw from to keep the operations going. So when the select board met in June of 2025 to vote on this, they essentially had to make 3 decisions. They had to vote on whether or not to adopt a multi-tier model as opposed to the single-tier model that we had had prior. They then had to make a decision on what the base rate of that was. So what is the minimum billing charge set at? It used to be at 750 cubic feet per quarter. The select board in June decided to set it at 300 cubic feet per quarter. The goal behind doing that was, again, to address those lower usage households. Many households only barely ever exceed 750 cubic feet of water. Even, when I had 5 people in my household, we never exceeded the minimum bill. So folks like that who had very low usage were essentially paying more than the 750 cubic feet of water. So the idea behind that was to reduce it and allow people to actually pay the true cost of their usage. And then the third decision they had to make was to vote on what the per gallon rate was. So the tiers that were set up to essentially capture regular households, right, small households, medium-sized households, and then large users, and to try to differentiate between them. And that's how the board ended up with the model that it has. Let me see if I can bring that up now. Sorry, this is going to take a minute to open because it's a very large file.
Let me ask you a real quick question about this. When you were modeling that, were you using that spreadsheet from the?
I was.
Okay.
I was.
Did you use it?
Yeah, I did. What I did was I actually, so you can see, here, I'll just go up here.
Yeah.
So
This is the sewer side.
Yeah, so what you can see is that there are different ways that you can play with these yellow cells are for where you can change things. And then over here, this is what Nicole was referring to. This is dry year, wet year target. So I was aiming for the target. I was aiming for the target, but I did back out some consistent revenue streams that I didn't want users to have to double pay. So, but yeah, I did use this model to try to make sure that the revenue would be sufficient. And I used the average target.
So let me walk.
So the one thing I will say is that it was very helpful to have this model because it enabled me to actually be able to. I jokingly say that I've worked on this a lot. What I presented to you was like version 9. So it was my way of spending a lot of time really trying to get the balance across everyone, across the whole volume spectrum to reach equity. And is there anything else, Nicole, you want me to point out?
I'm going to try to do it with just the cursor if possible, but I know it's going to be, it might be a challenge. If folks can see the cursor, hopefully, and can follow along. It's a little hard because you can't see the bottom left corner of the screen, so, but I'm going to do the best I can here. So this is the sewer rate side of things. And so let me just kind of give you a guided tour of this. What we have over here is the current budget for 2026, and this is actually the budget that will begin on July 1, 2026, the proposed budget. This proposed budget includes all revenues with the exception of the septage, which is that is a private septic pumping company will collect will collect sewage from private septic systems, and they will sometimes bring it to Peterborough to dump, and we collect some revenues from that. Now, we've looked back, and we did this a couple of times. We did it last year when we set the rates, and we did it again this year. And we feel that there's too much volatility in that one specific revenue line. We've seen it go from just over $100,000 a year in collections to $300,000 a year collections just in the last 5 years. And before that, we had nothing. We had no septage coming in or no appreciable revenue coming in. So I did back out that $300,000 of revenue because I don't think, especially with the state that the fund balance for the sewer system is currently in, I don't feel like that's a reliable amount. And that's really the only difference that you're going to see between what Bonnie's proposing to collect in the rates and what we would have collected under the old rate, which is what I have here in this top row, and then that's that average revenue, and then under the current rate model, which is what we expect on average, assuming an average year, expect to collect in revenues. That's really the only difference there. But as you can see, I've taken what was the old single-tier rate model, and I've just targeted to try to match that exact budget amount there. Bonnie's rates are here, which includes the annual service charge, the minimum service charge, the minimum usage that the service charge collects to, so 750 cubic feet. And then because the engineers had programmed in a 2-tier and a 3-tier model, I used this 2-tier model rather than me trying to reprogram the whole thing and probably break it.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't want to risk breaking it, so what I did was just put the rate in twice.
Yeah.
So it's capturing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then down here, you can see this is our current 3-tier model, so this is the minimum usage charge, which is $118.03 on the annual. The minimum cubic foot is 300 cubic feet of usage, and then the 3 different tiers, 12.07 cents, and then the cutoff is at 1,000 cubic feet. Again, that's the small households. The moderate-sized households charge is 14.34 cents per cubic foot, and that cuts off at 6,000 cubic feet, and then the tier 3 charge at 17.49 cents per cubic foot, and of course there's no cutoff. That is just, anything above and beyond 6,000.
Is that Weldon?
Yeah.
Hi, here's
Hold on a
Weldon.
second, Weldon.
I just wanted to confirm.
Weldon, hold on a second, sorry. I'll call on you first, but I want to, when Nicole's finished explaining, I want to...
It has to do with the numbers on the chart. I think there's an inaccuracy, but maybe Bonnie can confirm it.
Sorry.
Under the annual charge for the Tucker proposed, is that going to be, is that correct for the total year? That seems like only 2 quarters, not 4.
Just sewer.
Oh, just sewer,
Just
just sewer, okay, never
It's
mind.
just sewer, it's not water and sewer,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so this is just
Yeah.
the sewer side.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And I did send this to Bonnie, I know you didn't get it
I
till
just-
late in the day, but I was hoping that you'd have a chance to confirm that I had it right. And then on the water side of things, if I can just move over there and hopefully find my cursor again, there it is. Yeah. Okay, so now we're looking at the water rates, and again, this is the same thing. And so here you're seeing the same setup, the same breakout. The numbers are obviously different because the budgets are different. Now, here's where, and this is off the screen because I had to make it big enough for us to be able to read the numbers from the screen. But if we slide over a little bit to the right, you can see that the engineers programmed a very quick check. Is this meeting the goals? So the old rate system, if it were adjusted for today's budget, would meet the goals of not only our current year budget, but also the future budget, which is actually expected to be a little bit lower because as you pay down the bond, the actual needs of the department decline a little bit, assuming no big surprises. You'll see that our current rate structure actually will not meet our current year budget, but that's done by design. We have a one-time only expense to upgrade our SCADA system. That is expected to be drawn out of our current fund balance, and so that's intentional. We have enough money in the water side of the fund, on the water system's fund balance to be able to cover that cost without having to pass it on to the rate users, which is ultimately the selectmen's goal with the fund balance, to be able to do those one-time charges out of the rate balance.
And that was my assumption.
As well, exactly, which is why yours also does the same thing.
Yep.
In the 5-year, the 3-tier rate model will meet the 5-year budget. The rate model you're proposing does not meet that, would need to be adjusted. And we can look at the same thing on the sewer side as well, if I can find. Sorry. Using my cursor.
Lest anyone think that we just came up with the numbers and said, yeah, let's charge everybody more. This is a pretty intense interweaving of departments, and the finance department was greatly involved with coming up with this with the consultants.
Yeah, I will say, that's very true, and I also personally spent a lot of time trying to also make sure that we are hitting our target.
And so you can see the exact same, did we meet those goals? Again, the current 3-tier rate does. The only reason why the old rate doesn't was because I got so sick of futzing around with, 1/1000th of a penny on the rate, that I decided that it was close enough. But it does essentially meet the current budget.
Yeah. And on this one,
It's the revenue question.
it's the revenue question. I took the lowest of 5 years accepted.
Yep.
And I did confer with Seth on many of these things, and I also made the assumption that the SCADA comes from the fund balance and could actually be done this year even.
And so then there's the last thing to look at. This is essentially comparing, this was built out again by the engineers, and so they picked the quarterly cubic foot usage and annual cubic foot usage for water, and then below that sewer. And then that shows a comparison between our current 3-year in this column D here, if you can see that. If your cubic foot usage is 800 cubic feet per quarter or 1,200 cubic feet per year, under the current 3-tier model, your total annual bill would be $262 for just your water. And then for your sewer, under the proposal, it would be $296 in total, which would be an increase of $34.13%. But then as you go up in usage, you can see that begins to decline because more of the cost was shifted to, as Bonnie said, the minimum usage fee. And then there's a reduction in the rate, which starts to have an impact the higher you go into the usage tiers. So the larger the customer, the lower the rate or the total bill becomes by percentage.
Just a clarification, is the percent increase or decrease based on the current or the original?
Current 3-tier.
Okay.
Yeah. The original is buried in here. Because I wanted to make this as easy as you could to read, I hid those columns because it's just a lot of numbers. It becomes really difficult.
Yeah, and I did the
Yeah.
same thing. I compared current to my proposal.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, the biggest drops, again, are at the top end. On the water side of things, that's going to be your very large industrial users, and also the golf course. They're in the top 5 of our water consumers. On the sewer side, sewer side, you have the same large customers, but excluding the golf course because they don't use sewer. So that's New Hampshire Ball Bearing, Monadnock Community Hospital, Conval School District, Rivermead. Yeah, they're the 4 largest users.
But there is meaningful decrease in this middle section where the restaurants are.
Absolutely, yeah. So,
Bonnie, can you say what you just said again? Sorry.
Yes, I said there's meaningful decrease in the range of use where the restaurants are.
Yes, so that starts right around here, where you start to see the decrease get into the
Yeah,
20%
so-
and higher.
Yeah, because I think I said, so the smallest of the restaurants is about 6,600 cubic feet per quarter, and then it goes up to kind of about 15,000-ish. It's hard to say because some of those larger restaurants who are open longer also share space. But it's about 15,000. So it's about 6,600 to about 15,000 cubic feet where the restaurants are. And so there's a meaningful decrease there.
Just real quick summary, essentially the three decisions that the board have to make. What type of tiered model would you like to have, a single tier, multi-tier, what have you? You have to make a decision on what the minimum usage is. Right now, it's 300, the proposal's to go back up to 750. And then vote within, when you set the tier, when you decide what tiered system you want to use, assuming that it's not a single tier system, if you choose to stay with a multi-tiered system, there is an opportunity for the board to relook at where do those rates start. You have an opportunity to move that around without necessarily tossing out the three-tiered system. And then the last thing, of course, is to vote on the per gallon rate within those tiers.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. The only thing I would say is that that I call it the consumption allowance there's a base charge for access, and then there's a consumption allowance. So I pushed it out to try to support the low users from really getting hit too hard by seeing that graph shoot out too soon. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, really, ultimately, the most important goal in my mind is making sure we meet the budget and not dip into the fund balance any further. That has a dramatic impact on not only the town's safety, financially speaking, but also our ability to plan for known upgrades that are going to be necessary in the future.
That's a good point. Seth, do you want to add anything, or?
I would echo Nicole's comment. I mean, our goal is to run the operation, do it efficiently, and make sure we're meeting our debt obligations. So it's really board's prerogative on what the rate should be to do so.
That's great. Okay, the moment you've all been here waiting for, well, did you have another question, or?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm good.
let's see Corey's hand first.
Cody Bellwell.
Cody, sorry.
One other thing that I was wondering about is instead of doing the quarterly billing, can we go to monthly for more transparency on the bills? I had a $1,500 bill one quarter, and nobody can prove that I used the water. They could only read my meter for 30 days, not 90. So there was no transparency of where that water went. There was no leaks in the house. This next quarter, it went right back to 400. So there was like this, well, where to go? Well, you gotta prove that it was used, but they don't have to prove that it wasn't used. Can we go to monthly billing? It would lessen everybody's bill so they're not sticker shocked. And it's just a little bit easier to manage when it's every month. It's $100 here, $100 there, not $4 or $5.
It is something we can do. There is a cost associated with it, of course. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay.
That's a good, thank you.
I would love that too, just saying.
Great. Okay, can we see the hands of the people that would like to see that?
Monthly.
It depends on the tiers, right?
That's a great idea.
If you don't have the tiered system, then it makes more sense.
Gentleman back.
Yes, Daniel Perez. I'm here with Union Mill Condo Association. And the problem that the consultants didn't address is that if you have a 90-year-old couple in our Union Mill, which can't really adapt very well to a metering system, you end up having a 1,000 cubic foot user in an old couple paying at a 17,000 cubic foot rate. And there is a well-known solution to this, which is called RUB, ratio utility billing. We're already billed on our tax bills on a per condo, tax basis. So you know exactly how many users there are. So in our building, there's 17 tax bills. We could easily go to a much fairer system. And the problem is that none of these things that are being discussed addresses that discrepancy at all. None of these changes.
Yeah, well,
Engineering
but,
firm?
but let me just make sure I understand, because the fixed rate across the whole volume spectrum, that means everybody is paying the same amount. So it does actually address the issue. What was problematic was when the multi-family units ended up in the highest tier, and that really created the problem of disproportionate impact, because now that now the rate that you as a whole condo was paying had to be allocated at a much higher rate. This is really setting a fixed rate so that everybody who is using the volume along the whole spectrum is essentially equal about how much they're paying.
Right, but each family, if you take a single-family household, they're getting the fixed rate for longer. In the case of multifamily, you're taking 17 units.
Yeah.
So you got 17 times the volume. And so you get out of that, the fixed rate has almost, it's negligible.
True, that's true.
Yeah, so you end up on the
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah,
Even if
that's
it's-
true.
And your proposal's great, I mean, it's a big help towards what we're doing,
Yeah,
but it doesn't achieve that unfavorability, you know, the discrepancy.
yeah, it's just taking what we had before
Yeah,
and just shifting it up a bit.
yeah, exactly.
That's essentially what it's doing.
Exactly, and the problem is, we've looked at the water metering option, and for the Union Mill, it's crazy expensive, so the cost of the extra tax is almost as much as if we did the whole metering system and got the 60K max allocation, and we would still be in the same position at the end of the day. So, yeah, it's just the cost of those meters don't offset the
Yeah.
bill.
So yes, we did ask the engineers about that. The engineering firm said, well, that has come up in other towns that have adopted conservation models, like the tiered model that you've looked at. It's been addressed in a bunch of different ways. One of them was, they really did, emphasize that to truly get conservation, you need each household to have its own meter. In addition to that, it also helps the multi-unit building owners to know if there's water loss within their system, because otherwise you may miss it for many, many months, perhaps years. And having individual meters helps you to not only see that consumption, but also be able to isolate it and fix it quickly. They did say that other towns have adopted multiple customer categories as one way to solve the issue of the historic buildings or more, complicated buildings that are not easy, and that's certainly something that we've discussed. But they encouraged, trying to move as many multifamily properties onto individual per unit meters as possible to continue to achieve that conservation goal. So again, it really comes back to the select board deciding what is it that you're trying to achieve with the model first, and then we can design programs around that. That's where the meter incentive program came in. The hope with that was to allow us, with willing partners and the multifamily property owners, to examine each of the buildings, see whether, what the cost would actually be, if it's feasible, if it's easy, when, where it potentially could be on some buildings, and relatively little expense, convert those, and then you'll see that the per unit rates will drop, or the per unit cost will drop dramatically, because many of them will be in that lower single tier, maybe for a larger family edging up into the second tier.
So Beth, correct, I'm sorry, go
and then for, for others, to then, come back to the board and say, these aren't, these unfortunately, these buildings just really can't be modified or retrofit in a cost appropriate way. Let's look at another option.
So Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did look into doing a proportional system
And
with our
it's
billing
not
system.
It's not feasible in the current software that we have.
Right. So we would take a fairly large expense and we would modify the software in order to accomplish that.
I have a question for multi-unit buildings. When we're offering this meter program, the water feed comes in to my house. I'm a single-family house. And there's the water meter and the pipes go to every fixture. In a multi-unit, it comes in the cellar and then it splits, and then the pipes split off to each unit. Are we asking that,
Maybe.
that people,
Yeah,
A lot
So-
of different
there's a
configurations.
lot of configurations.
so then the challenge is getting the meter for each individual unit that the town could possibly provide, but there must be, this is 2026, there must be an individual homeowner's unit that you can attach to the pipe that comes through your wall in your apartment.
Let's assume that each unit only has one water supply. to it.
Correct, yeah, that's the problem. Yeah,
Because
so
if they're stacked, the hot's going up. and it's
Precisely.
going out here.
that's exactly the problem. That's where a lot of these, like old Victorians, that got broken up into 3 apartments, that's what they look like. Wherever the closest water source was, they just ran it from there.
Right. Who had another question? Yes.
Thank you, Bonnie, that was an excellent proposal, and I like the fact that you targeted the revenue that we need to achieve as a town, but just a different method to get there. I did want to also speak about,
Can you just state your name for the record?
I'm sorry, Elizabeth Halper.
Thanks,
from
Elizabeth.
Peterborough. I do the accounting for the HOA up at Noon Falls condominium and some of the other businesses as well. And we do have some internal meters for the restaurant, so it's a mixed-use building. So we have a restaurant using anywhere from 65 to 72% of that water. And then we have a few commercial tenant units and some residential units. And with the way the structure is now, in addition to the tiered billing hurting everyone, it does not give the opportunity for these single-unit residents, where maybe there's one retired person or maybe 2 people, to even take advantage of the lower tier. And when I do my analysis with the 2 meters that we can rely on, only 6 of the 7 units fall into that lowest tier, and yet they still have to pay at the higher rate. So I think the main thing is to settle how you're going to generally address the billing, and then these exceptions, I ask that the town would be open to that in some way. It's a historic building, and I think probably you could take over and talk to.
Yeah, Steve Walker, also part of Noon Falls, and generally speaking, the janitor. And the idea of putting in separate meters works somewhere around $5,000 per unit just in plumbing. And it just seems insane to do that, because that's not helping the town, it's not helping us, not helping anybody other than the plumber. And, I love plumbers, but we're here to talk about the town and ourselves here with our businesses. The other thing, in talking to a lot of businesses around here, my own business, by the way, is not really affected much. We just don't use much water, so it doesn't matter. So I don't really have skin in the game in that way. But representing this condo association, it's a real problem. We do, almost all of the units there are single people, and they are all in the highest category now. So they and everyone there, including the restaurant there, has experienced an 85% increase in one shot. And I think that's probably the biggest problem we're dealing with here, is just getting spanked without really notice. And when I say that, I know you guys notice and do everything, but surprise, surprise, everyone's got other things in their lives and didn't get that memo, and they certainly didn't understand that big increase. And so the other businesses, and I realize there's a lot here and they can speak for themselves, but I do worry we don't spend enough time with our businesses. We're not this one should have been a one-on-one conversation, I think, with a lot of businesses before going forward, if it was going to be that big a jump. And especially for restaurants, because, as a proportion of revenue, water is probably the biggest thing. They're getting hit the hardest. And then larger families, and that's another thing, this tiered thing, I don't quite understand. Lastly, or second to last, I've got a wife here who owns Rosalie's Farm. we had to defect from the system years prior for totally separate reasons. There was a pipeline that was going bad, et cetera. But if we were still connected and the farm was still connected to that would be the end of the farm, or we would have to defect from the system. There'd be two choices. And so one thing I really worry about with this is anyone who can defect from the system might. And then we have less revenue, and then everyone has to pay more because it's a fixed cost system here. And so that's just something I do worry a little bit about. And I know Rosalie's was a pretty big water user at the time, and again, it had nothing to do with these price increases, but if we were in that position, it definitely would be a big problem. And then finally, on the minimum charge thing, I just kind of doing the math, because we defected from the had to get off. I don't want to say defect, but we worked it out with the town to get 11 houses off the town system due to a bad pipeline that was going to cost too much. The total cost, when you look at sewer and water, is about $40,000 for, that's what we paid, actually a little more than that, but on average that's what it's going to be. And if you work that out on a 30-year mortgage, that's a $3,000 charge per year you're going to get no matter what. So this minimum, like Bonnie's proposal to put that minimum up, makes a heck of a lot of sense to me, because to me it's still an insane bargain, because you're talking about $200 a year or $300 a year or so versus $3,000 a year for any individual that isn't part of the system. That's what they have to pay. And then the final thing here is just, I just want to give a hand to all the workers. You know, that we have a weird building that had some really weird problems, and your water department, your sewer department, and your fire department were just amazing to work with. So granted, we're paying a hell of a lot of money for this stuff, but at least we're getting great service. Thanks.
If I can just jump in real quick, so there is an irrigation meter allowance, so you can have, if you have a home, but you also have extensive gardens, you can get irrigation meters put in, same for commercial. There's no minimum charge on the irrigation meters. All you're doing is paying the per cubic foot charge.
Yes, sir.
So Jugget Kalsa. And Bonnie, I appreciate your proposal, was very clear, I understood it. Nicole, I didn't quite understand at the end where you said that Bonnie's proposal wouldn't meet the needs of the town, because from listening to Bonnie, it seemed like it would, unless I'm misunderstanding it. So where is the discrepancy between what she's going to do and what's...
No.
Can the two of you kind of explain it?
Sure. I don't think I said that, because I think...
There was X's on...
I interpreted it the same way.
Oh, okay, so the difference is just on the sewer side, and it's the revenue numbers that Bonnie uses versus what I've used. Bonnie is using a revenue number that includes the septage, the fees that we collect for septage that comes in. That's those private septic haulers who bring in septage and then pay to dump it at the wastewater treatment plant. Bonnie used our estimated $300,000 in revenue for next year when she was making her calculations. And so the anticipated revenue that she would collect is $300,000 less than what I've anticipated. And that's based on myself and other members of the staff looking at the history of that revenue and seeing way too much volatility in it to really feel that it's reliable. Because, you know, 5 years ago, we were barely receiving anything. Then we started receiving septage, and we started receiving the revenue associated with that. Once we started receiving that, we received anywhere in the last 5 years from $130,000-ish per year to about $300,000 in a year. So there's a whole lot of volatility there.
So that's
I don't
the only
feel like
difference?
But she based it off of the lowest year, correct?
I based it off, yeah, I just want to
Yeah, you
clarify what
based it
I
off-
did.
yeah.
I based it off of the lowest over 5 years.
And I zeroed it out.
Yeah, and you zeroed it out, and I also included some other elements of revenue that come in, and also the SCADA, which really needs to just come out and get done.
Which I took out. So SCADA's not included.
What is that word you use? SCADA?
SCADA, forget exactly what it stands for, but it's the...
automated computer systems that we use to monitor the system remotely from the wastewater plant for both water and sewer. So it's a modern computer technology that allows our staff to respond in real time.
Thank you.
So that's essentially it. So those are two different, the SCADA has an impact on the water side of things, and that's why there was a red X there instead of being a green check mark and whether or not it met the current year budget.
And
Bonnie and I both
we
did the
both
same
took it.
thing.
Yeah, we both
Neither of
took it
us
out.
captured that.
Yeah.
On the sewer side of things, Bonnie counted revenue that I am not counting, which is why there is a red box on Bonnie's, and then on the current rate model, it's a green check. That's it. So it's really just a different in philosophy as far as how do we approach the
Yeah,
revenue.
and I would say that it's not a lot of variability.
No, it's very
between-
small.
It's very small, and when you consider the variability in our dry and wet, and, it's not an
Exactly.
exact, it's not an
It's not exact science at all. It's an estimate in both ways. So Bonnie and I don't disagree very much. It's just that the engineer's little box makes it look, it's a big shock, and it's really not at all. It's not.
It'd be great to hear from anybody who hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll get back over to you. Dave.
I'm Dave Odland, and so what I'd just like to say a couple things about this. Maybe we could go back to the graph
Oh,
that
my.
Bonnie put up.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me get the PowerPoint back up.
Which one do you want, David?
The first
The
one.
very first one.
The very
Okay.
first one
Yeah,
first.
Get to it, there you go.
Oh,
So-
sorry. We were doing it at the same time. There we go.
So I'm both going to agree and disagree with what Bonnie wants to do. So just so you know, so on this graph, when you get to about where it says 1,000, that's about a person or a person and a half. When you get to 2,000, that's 2 to 4 people in a household. And in any given year, in the 10 years that we looked at, anywhere from about a quarter to 40% of the people in town fit in that 2,000 and lower. So in the situation where Bonnie shows you the current, where she lowered the current, fact of the matter is that everyone that uses 1,000 or less cubic feet a quarter pays their share of the usage of the water under that regime. Only the people that are between 350 and 1,000 are paying for the people that use less than 350. They're making up the difference. So it's not the people out on the right-hand side of the thing that are paying for the elderly lady who lives by herself downtown for her water usage. It's the people that are using just a little bit more water than she uses. So that's one thing to consider as you try to think your way through how these things work. The other thing is if you look at how the graphs diverge as they go out, that's some of the difference between whether you get a green check box or a red X.
I don't think that's not necessarily.
It's some of it. It's not all of it. It's some of it. Another thing just to think about, so on a wet year, the town used about 17 million cubic feet of water, and on a dry year, 12 million cubic feet of water. On a dry year like we had last year,
That sounds reversed.
I'm sorry, on a
Wet.
right, on a wet year, we used 12 million
Okay, 12.
gallons of water from our system because there's a lot less watering. And it's not always apparent, but on a wet year, the people that water, or the people that run the golf course, they actually pay slightly more than their usage, but only by 1% or 2. On a dry year, the people that are down on the other end, they pay slightly more than what they use. And that's the way it kind of works right now. So what I would say is, if you go back to that cruciform thing that you used, to my mind, partly what we have to do as a town and as a board is to weigh and weight all of those things. How much does affordability matter to us? Last year's changes weighed affordability at the low end highly. And to the tune of where some of the lower end users who are less able to pay and less elastic in their usage, got some brakes on their water. And so if we wanted to change that, then I think one of the things to do is to look at kind of how you want to weigh that. How do you want to weigh affordability at the low end, at the middle, and at the upper ends? And then you can start to look at how you want to try and do some of these things. I will tell you why I like what Bonnie's done, but why I don't agree with it. And it's because if I go back 2 years ago to the original rate of 111.98, and I look at the proposal, the people that are at the low end that are less able to pay get about a 27% increase in their water bill. And the people that are at the high end, water and sewer bills, because I'm looking at the combined one, people at the high end would pay about 22% more on average. And to me, that pushes the pendulum on the affordability scale back in a way that I would not like to see us do. But there are many numbers in between where we used to be and where we need to go that we could consider, and you can run lots of cases once you really understand. But it's a very complicated thing because, like I said, the amount of water that we get and then who gets, the cost gets shifted to depends a great deal on how much it rains or doesn't rain between April and October every year. And that's all part of that. So, but if we could do that, and everybody, I mean, I always, every time I open my mouth, I say this, stable revenue to meet expenditures, that doesn't meet what we all know by driving down our streets is we need to do in the next 30 years in this town, and that is change out the water and sewer pipes that underlie the major parts of the town. And for many years, we've kept the rates steady. Because of Cold Spring and some of the other things that are happening, we're having to start to address some of those capital expenditure needs. Unfortunately, you know, water and sewer systems last for about 100 years, plus or minus 20 years, and we happen to be sitting at 90 years. So, you know, I'm going to try and get into a different regime on my next lifetime. So some of that stable revenue thing does have to, in fact, start to charge more now to put money aside for 4 years or 5 years from now. And we have to deal with that. And clearly, economic development is important. You know, we can't lose the restaurants, we can't lose our golf course. We want a pool that has water in it. So, I mean, everything we have to try and play with. And I would like to see us do that as a town again, spend more time at it, have more of these sessions where we get, gosh, this is, in 2.5, 3 years that I've done budget and capital, there's only a couple other times when I've seen this many people show up to a meeting and that. But what I was gonna, I will stop talking after I say that. Once we kind of do that, then I would like us to go back and talk to the multifamily users and the folks that live in crazy condos and that, and see what it would take. And that, and maybe we can't do it in a day or two, but maybe we can do it in a year or two, and we can work our way through it. Or, you know, one of the things that occurred to me listening is, okay, so we can't individually meter those people, but if we just took the building and said, you got 6 occupants, and we divided by 6, would that help?
Yes.
Why not?
Yes.
Because that's simpler than some of the other things. But clearly, some people in the building are still going to be paying extra for some other people in the building, but it might help a little bit. And
Yes, you know, let me just comment that's ratio utility billing, and we're a community, and it wouldn't be an issue between us.
Okay.
We talk all the time.
so that would be one. So there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of people that have this difficulty, but like I said, if we can get to that part, then I think we can tackle some of these other things and see what can we do now, what can we do in 6 or 12 months, what can we do in a couple of years, and what would it cost? I mean, what's it going to cost to read the meters once a month, Seth?
I wrote the, David.
couple of man
Quite a bit
years.
more than we're paying now.
Yeah, a couple of man years, right? 100,000 more, something like that,
So
probably.
So
A lot.
If I
So-
can, it just, I think that it's really clear that we have a lot more conversing to do on this before the board can make a decision. We still have the Community Power Committee to make a presentation. Seth needs authorization to accept bids. We have a grant proposal the board needs to review. And I'd still really like to have the right to know policy looked at before we go tonight, so.
I would like to make sure everyone feels like they had an opportunity.
Absolutely, that was my
To share
suggestion.
their perspective.
Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Farland. I actually just had two fairly quick questions. One is, does the budget number that you're looking at, does that include reserves for these repairs that are coming up? Is there been a reserve study? Is there any, nothing?
So this just meets the budget, and depending on whether you look at the way Bonnie has done the sewer revenues or the way I've done sewer revenues, there's an opportunity to potentially save a little bit of money if we bring those revenues in. But
this
aside
just
from
covers
that, there is
basically the
no.
fixed
Yeah.
costs
No.
And then
annually.
That's it.
That's
Yeah,
I didn't
all,
put anything else.
because it was such a big jump in one
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
So, because, even if the board hadn't adjusted to a three-tier model, at that time, we were looking at an 83% jump in sewer rates and an 85% jump in water rates in 1 year. And so, for everybody across the board, if the board hadn't adopted the three-tiered model. So that was why the board decided to, let's just look at just the budget, let's move to this three-tier model, and then we'll start talking about goals in the future when it becomes more reasonable to do so.
Okay, so my second question was, would it be possible to set a higher base and do some sort of discount for lower income people like they do on the taxes?
Yes, you could do that, you would
And
have to
even
have
out that
people apply to it. We do have a utility, we already have that in place, so there is a program, it already exists within our Human Services Department, welfare, where people who can't afford the utility bills can apply for a discount. So we already have that already exists.
So that might be something
Certainly.
to consider when thinking about what that base number needs to be.
Yeah, it's already there, so that's doable.
And Rick.
That 85% number, I have trouble understanding. It's the, 2.6 million, we had to get to 4.3, right, something like that. It's 26% raise for everybody, not 85. I don't know where that's coming from. 30%, not 85%. I don't get that.
It is the rate itself going from the old rate, if we had stayed with a single tier, going from the old rate and the old to the new, to what had to be raised through the budget process.
That's impossible.
Yeah, it doesn't
make
That's
sense.
impossible.
Yeah, but that's with you using that new fixed rate,
It makes no sense.
not with the original fixed rate.
No, that was with the original 750 cubic feet of minimum charge.
The
So
old
if
rate is
that,
15 cents.
Because
85%
everything
of that is like
Yeah.
to 30 cents.
I'm sorry, I don't,
The old rate was 15 cents.
Can you state your name for the record?
David Bernstein. The old rate was 15 cents. 85% of that gets you up to almost 30 cents. 30 cents times 15 million cubic, it's like $4.5 million. It's, the increase that Bonnie was proposing was 20%. If you raise it 1% more, you would raise another 150,000, 1 cent more, $150,000. So I think we got off on looking at how much money each thing brought in. The real question is, what way are we going to do it? And it's easy to chain. You have to decide whether we're going to have something where everyone pays more because they're all getting something, or some people pay less than they were paying. And a lot of those people paying less could be second homeowners who are here in large numbers and who don't pay when they should be paying. They're getting a major asset. You know, if a developer has to build water and sewer for a house, it's going to cost him $50,000 to $100,000. We let them connect for like, I don't know, I saw it in your code, are pennies, $2,500, $2,000. That's kind of, but it's a great thing we're giving people when they get water and sewer. And so charging for it is something you have to do. And if people can't afford it, and I'm sure some people can't afford it, we should have programs to help them. But we shouldn't give, this developer here on Concord Street, he's connected now. He's not using any water. He's paying $50 a quarter for each of those houses. He should be paying, at least his fair share of the fixed costs. He's getting a value. So I think we really need to think long enough. Bonnie's done a lot of work. It's easy to get more money out of Bonnie's system. It's fairer for, there's a lot of people who are getting 40, 50, 60% increases. It's too much. And if that's how much you need, then you need to say it. But you can't say we're only going to increase, we need to cover 20 or 25%, and then say, oh, we need to, in the newspaper, we need to cover 85%. Those are two different things. So I just think it's really important that we change, that we don't just push this down the road. There are people who are being hurt. It costs a fortune to change multifamily houses. There might be a few that you can do. It's not going to work. And Bonnie's program works for multifamily. It really does.
Partially.
No, but it works for you too. It really does, because 17 units all paying the same amount as everyone else.
We may not have crosstalk. This is really relevant. Thank you. You make a bunch of great points, and many of the things you mentioned, Dave, are things that we considered the first go around.
Yeah.
And with the consulting firm, the engineering firm that's done this over many municipalities. So
But you reduce the rate for a lot of people, including
it was
second
juggling balls. You could have
second
picked-
family,
could have picked
second
any-
homes.
Any 3 different parameters, it would have had different outcomes. That was the one that was chosen based on all of the work that was done for several years, and now we're hearing more of it, and we're going to do exactly what you're saying. We're going to reconsider everything we've heard here, because a lot of great points were made. And Bonnie had a fantastic presentation and has done a lot of work on this. And so we're not just going to throw it out the window. I mean, we're going to consider it, but I don't think it's going to, and David, who's on the budget committee, David Alden, made another great point, that this isn't going to happen on the next bill, because it's going to take some time to work out those, play around with the system some more, and the multi-unit apartments it's mind-boggling to try and, but they're all, a lot of them are second homes sometimes, so, it's like, how, you can't think about the people that are in these properties. It's just like when you write policy for a position, you don't write the policy for the person that's in it currently, you write the policy for the position that's gonna go on in perpetuity. So you can't think about occupants, you have to think about the costs of what they're doing, what they're using, and
So
if you-
Tyler, on that front, one
Yeah.
quick question, or 2 questions. So if you go back and revisit this, is there a time frame that this would be tackled in, and what can we expect time-wise? And number 2, before we leave,
Sure.
in the interim, what relief can be provided for the struggles that everyone is facing right now from the town? Reverting back to the old billing system, or perhaps something?
Those are great questions. I would think we're going to discuss this at the next meeting, next couple of meetings perhaps. We have a town meeting coming up. What do you think about it? What can we do right now to get increase?
So the multifamily unit, the multifamily building incentive program is the first place that I would say, if you're a multifamily property owner and you have not yet applied to the program, please do so. Once you've been accepted into the program, there is a retroactive abatement of your bill to the second tier that goes back to October 2025 that is applied, and then that lasts for 18 months.
Is this
So-
the meter?
What's that?
About the putting in a meter, is that what you're talking about?
That's the one, that's the multi-unit.
Could I do that? Other than that?
Wait, slow down. That is something that can be done right away. So anyone who is a multifamily property owner can apply to that program. We're currently working through the first of 11 applications.
Yeah, 11 or 12.
11 or 12 applications that we've received. And so once that's done, the fixed Tier 2 rate will be applied. Anything that was paid over will be reimbursed back to the property owner for redistribution as the case may be. The second thing is any single-family homeowner who does, again, a lot of outdoor gardening, please contact us. We also have an irrigation meter incentive program, so recommend doing that. And the third thing, of course, is if you're a low-income family, please apply for the utility assistance program. We have that, and that can take effect very quickly. It's not a difficult program to apply to. Justine is happy to walk anybody through it.
Okay, Kate Taylor, the golf course, obviously, right? So, quick question. I am not a multifamily or a single family. I'm a business that I haven't paid my last water bill yet, which is $12,000. Because going into the winter, it was last quarter, and when I opened my bill and it was normally like, $3,300 and it was $10,400, I didn't budget for that because that was last quarter. So I feel like one thing this town is really lacking is transparency. Like when people go to vote, and we know we're like voting in for this repayment of this bond, we don't know that our rates are actually going to go up and our bill is going to be 80% more. Like I wouldn't have voted for anything if I knew my bill in the future was going to be that. So I don't know if we need to start a new committee or something needs to happen that when you guys put in new policies, it goes through a lens of like, how is this going to affect single people, multifamily uses, our condo uses, our businesses, because that was a huge change to do to anybody in the last quarter of anything. So I don't know what program exists for me per se, and I know like I'm an outlier, but it seems like what you wanted to do was have like businesses, the bulk of the businesses, pay for the water. That's like how it feels like a personal attack, and I know it's not. That's how it feels as a business owner. And this whole thing of like conserving to like lowers the bill, to lower bills. That feels like it's just putting us backwards, and we're actually not going to meet our costs if people actually conserve like people say they want you to. So I have a lot of rage about it because for me, there's no good way unless I triple increase people's memberships, which I can't do. And then there's a lot of people who like have condos that there's no way that they can pay fairly. There's just no way. So I think in the future, when we're voting on a policy change, there needs to be clear writing when we go to vote. This is what could happen to our bills. Like this is what we're voting in, because nobody would have voted for this if they knew this was happening.
I thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure.
I appreciate your frustration, I know you. None of this is secret. We have meetings, we're here every other Tuesday, we have the meetings, they're posted online. We have public hearings, we went through a whole months and months, years of talking about a new well because our wells run dry sometimes, and we lost a well down by the ball bearing. These are things that every town deals with. Water is a diminishing resource. It's a precious thing, and so we have
Can
to
it
do
be
this
precious
well.
over time though? Like a small annual increase? Like, okay, we have 5 years to pay this back. Let's charge up a little bit this year. Okay, let's pay a year. Not year 5, it's due back. Everybody empty your pockets.
Only buildings
Like-
were cheap to build and wells were cheap to do. I mean, really, it was, this
It
is,
was postponed
Like
for COVID.
what?
it was postponed for COVID, sure. And the bill, we did have a notice on our water bill, the prior bill before the rates.
But you don't think it's gonna go up $800 a month?
So I think the disconnect between the select board and the community was we're literally talking about pennies. So when they say, oh, you're only gonna go up 3 cents for your usage, well, they don't understand the usage. If you ask anybody in town,
I mean,
We don't.
like we don't. So like if you look at your bill, 90% of the town's not gonna know what a cubic foot is of water. They would not be able to explain that to you, they don't understand that. So when you're talking about a couple cents per cubic foot, they don't get it. And then they see their bill and they're like, holy smokes. I mean, mine went up 50%. And so we're pricing the 25 to up out of this community because right now I inherited a home. I got very lucky. I don't have a mortgage and it cost me $1,100 a month just to the town to live here. So people that have a mortgage and are trying to have kids and we're trying to build up this community, they're moving, they're leaving. We talk about conservation, I don't understand what the conservation part of it is. That was confusing me tonight. Are we low on water, or?
Well, I mean, every year we've, in the past, how many, in 10 years, how many droughts have we had? Every other year at least?
Say every other year on average.
So, and, you know, it's only gonna get worse in the future. That's why this well was voted pretty overwhelmingly. I think we've really heard from, No, one more, Miss.
I just really want to piggyback on Caitlin McPherson. I want to piggyback on Kate's because I went from a roughly $300-ish water bill to $1,100. That is not something that I was socking away for, and I did see the notice that it was going up. But that's an $800 difference, you know, that is not being, something's not right. My second kind of piggyback on that is like, what process do you want someone to go through looking at? Because on that bill, it wasn't just the rate. All of a sudden, my usage skyrocketed. Tripled. And I'm not the only one that's happened to. And so it took me a while because I knew that I didn't want to come down to the town offices after opening that first bill because it wouldn't have said probably the right things, as anyone opening a bill like that is, you know, like I am looking at now, like, where do I move to now? Because I can't afford the taxes or the water bills with that going. So that's why people, I mean, obviously we all know why we're a little bit heightened on it, but the process of like the right process to go to on like, how can we look at like, is this water usage something that we could look at? Like how, I'm not a water person, so I don't know if I don't know how to look at my own water meter and look at what the town's saying I'm using, and then all of a sudden it's back down the next month, and then it's like, so that's where I'm
And that's where I brought in the monthly billing, because Nate was amazing. He came over, checked everything, went through everything with me, explained everything, but he couldn't prove that I even used the water, because the 1 month that he used, my usage was like 6,000 cubic feet. And the month that he could look back, it was only 1,000 cubic feet. So he was saying that I used 4,000 cubic feet in 2 months and couldn't show me how or where it went. So the monthly billing would be huge, because then it would be like managing your checkbook. You could see exactly how much you're using every month.
It's just not sustainable.
Tyler, I just have one simple request if you don't mind.
Jared, and this is it, because I think we've heard some little redundancy. Certainly we're feeling it. I mean, we're sympathetic. I don't want anybody leaving here thinking that we're not listening to you. I mean, we really are, and we've listened to the people for the past 10 years who wanted to lower, you know, the affordability and the conservation. And so now we're hearing from this group of people who looks completely different from the previous. So people need to be engaged. People need to understand how municipalities work. People need to come out and vote. May 12th, we'll be voting on, look up the warrant on the 10th. We're going to discuss a little bit of it tonight if you want to stick around for another hour or so. We're working here. We have town staff working here. We're sticking around because we're here for you. We're here for the constituents. And it was great to hear from everybody. I mean, we're not going to toss it out the window. Not everybody's going to get what we all want, because we have to pay the bills, so we'll have to work out a way where it makes sense to alleviate some spots. Jared, one last thing.
Jared Chisholm, my request for you is something that I appreciate that Bonnie did in going through her proposal, is she reached out to the community, to families of 5+, to businesses, to others that are in the community to look at their water bills to see how it would be impacted. And my request to you is as you go back to the drawing board here over the next few months and look at doing the proposals, if you could do the same, because it feels like that was lacking from the study that the engineering department did.
It was built into the model.
Okay, I don't care about model, you can tell me about models all day long, but talking about people looking at people's actual bills and seeing how it's going to impact it makes a big difference. And it's part of being in transparency with the community and being involved with the community, because it feels like we were very much left out of that piece of it until after the fact, but Bonnie did a great job of getting the community involved and doing that. So if you could just give us some opportunity to, whatever you decide on, you start coming to your proposals of this is what we want to do, meeting with some people in the community to.
Realize that, yes, I agree, Bonnie's done a great job of this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other activity going on
Oh,
behind
I'm
the
sure.
scenes that you don't know about.
Okay. Well, I just,
We
when you
have
talk,
been studying this for years.
Okay.
Okay, so we really appreciate all the input. We understand your concerns, and we're going to address them. That's all I can say at this point. We're going to do our best.
I can just say, you know, there's almost 7,000 people in this community, so it's really tough for us to reach out to every single one.
I'm not saying every single, there's a few.
Everybody has the opportunity to sign up for the selectmen's email list. You get, as soon as the agenda is put out, you get a notification in your inbox telling you what's going to be on the agenda for discussion that night. So I hope that everyone here goes home, goes immediately to the town's website, and if you haven't already, please sign up for the selectmen's email list so that you'll know when this is next on the agenda. We also post it to our Facebook page. Obviously, it's posted directly to the town's website. But if you want the message to come directly to you, please sign up for that email. You'll get that plus an occasional bi-weekly newsletter from us, just giving you updates on other things that are going on in the town. So please do that. That's it.
Okay. Now, back to we're still in a public hearing regarding the changes, amendments to the code book. Thank you, everybody that wanted to comment. No one wants to stick around and listen to transparent discussion on code book stuff? Okay.
I'm putting you in from that.
Well, I appreciate that. This is very difficult.
I live out of your way. I'm a new Hampshire boy. Cane scares me. You may not be absolutely.
I'm about to find your neighbors. Neighbors, anywhere they can be involved.
Thank you very much for all your work.
Fireworks.
When we get to the rest of the chapters,
I don't know how this notification system.
Hey, Bruce, you're on deck. They did a good job. You're on deck, Bruce.
Nicole, can I ask you a question about water meters? We're gonna need 2.
Welcome, Bruce. Yeah.
Was it something I said?
Yeah, what happened? Yeah, please, sure.
Okay. On March 4th, the Peterborough Community Power Committee met to consider a recommendation to the Select Board. And it recommends the Select Board issue an RFP for 100% renewable energy for fiscal year 2027.
I'm sorry, I'm sitting right here and I can't hear a word you're saying.
Yeah, we're gonna, Ed, you can't close the door.
Can't close the door.
Can we shut it somewhat?
No, it has to open.
Has to be completely open?
So
Start again.
So the recommendation that the Community Power Committee of Peterborough voted on March 4th was that the committee recommends that the Select Board issue an RFP for 100% renewable energy for fiscal year 2027 or 2027 to 2028. That is a 1 or 2 year contract that encourages the use of local renewable energy. And just as context, CPC&H, the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, does not currently have an annual or biannual rate. So this allows the town to issue an RFP for a longer term, and that's important due to the current volatility in electric rates. And issuing an RFP will actually allow you to find a more stable, long-term rate that you can depend upon for your next 1 or 2 budget years.
So,
Well, just background, we're on the current rate until
August.
The current rate can be left at any point. You just have to tell CPC&H that you want to
change the rate.
Change.
And we're currently on
100? You're on
No,
Peterborough local?
That's right, the Peterborough local.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we want to change that.
You guys decided on 75% non-renewable energy.
That's not the way we look at it. We look at it as everything we put into it is 100% local renewable energy that we build. And that's guaranteed because we're building it ourselves,
This is true, but
not
if
sending it off to Texas or wherever.
we look at what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz and the ships being stopped and all that non-renewable energy that's sitting there idle. If towns like Peterborough that had a 100% renewable mandate actually stuck to their guns and pushed for that and not caved to a carrot that's dangled and made a statement, the demand for renewable energies would be higher, more would be made, and this is only my view, and we wouldn't be sending money 75% of our to non-renewable, and I really feel firmly about that. So I don't.
Well, that was
Local-
actually our recommendation.
Because local can also mean that someone could have a coal burner to power some local. It's not specific to renewable. So I appreciate that. So what are our next steps with?
I'm looking for the owner of a black Subaru parked on the other side of the Grove Street there. Forgive me.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, go ahead.
No, so my question is how, so if we ask for this RFP, what is our next step? What does this do to our current local, Granite local?
Yeah, so this is how I think about it. I think we can leave it at any time because it's not a locked-in rate. But where I'm coming from is that there's the town accounts, and then there are the resident accounts. And for the town, we budgeted for an 18-cent rate for 2027 budget. And where I'm coming from is that's high. Now, I know why we did it, because we want to make sure we're covered. But I think if we go out for a bid, RFP, we may find that we can actually get a lower bid that can lock us in either 1 year or
100%.
at 100%, either 1 year or 2 year.
Right.
So I think there's some real value.
That's what we want to do.
Yep.
I appreciate that because I went home and looked at my bill and I'm on the Granite local default. And here's one here that's 100% renewable, clean sky energy. And it's 12 cents per kilowatt hour, last updated January 2026.
Exactly.
So
That's where I'm coming from.
there's one with 11 cents. So if we, and then, okay.
That's it.
Okay, so someone's gonna make a motion to put out an RFP for,
I'll make that motion, put out an RFP for 100% renewable electric.
Second.
anybody in the audience wants to adopt this? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, great, thank you, Bruce. Now what? Oh, that one's done.
What took you so long, Bruce, to get to?
I was thinking about it. We had minutes. I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from March 3rd. Those are-
Well, we've got
As amended.
some more.
But this
Right to
takes
know.
2 seconds, as amended. I mean, the minutes, yeah, do you have a second? Are they gonna, are the minutes from March
Well,
3rd?
we're
gonna
still,
change?
we're still in the public hearing.
Oh, right, we are, but we jumped over to the power rates.
I think it's okay, I mean, you suspended the public hearing for the time being.
Oh, okay.
If
All
you
right.
want to
Suspended.
proceed down through the rest of the agenda and then return to the code book, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Clearly, people had the opportunity to come to the meeting
Sorry.
and hear about it, so they're not missing out now.
All right. So I made a motion to approve minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. See, that's done. Okay, I make a motion to appoint Summer Bernier as a police officer.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Already been vetted. Seth left. No, he didn't.
No, he's hiding there.
He left the big table.
Patiently waiting.
Okay. This will be quicker than the warrant articles, right?
I don't think the warrant articles will take long either, but yeah.
Okay,
I'm sure
Seth,
it'll
want to
look
run
like-
through those bottom two, and then you could buzz up.
I'm staying for the municipal water and sewer section too. So
Right.
I'm here till we close, but that's okay. I'm not in a hurry.
Thank you.
Sure. The Elm Street and Grove Street Bridge, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, sure.
Board recommendation. So I put a memo in your packet.
Yep.
Tried to lay it out and make it as clear as possible. We had a competitive bid process. I believe the date was, and of course I left my reading glasses in the office, February 24th. We opened those. Slightly overbid from what we expected, but if you understand municipal capital budgeting, we're 2 years in advance usually of any capital construction project actually going out to bid, and a lot happens in the economy during that time, but nevertheless still within a reasonable allowable range and confirmed to be competitive pricing through our own review, our engineers' review, and the pricing that came back showing at least 2 contractors with responsible bids within a few percentage of each other. So we felt confident in the numbers. Those numbers are Grove Street Bridge. Again, I apologize, I should have brought my reading glasses with me, but I just have to get the right distance. Total construction phase funding request $531,895, just $895, still to be funded through the downtown TIF, slightly over the original estimates of a couple years ago, $484,000. Part of that, as I outline in this memo to you, is also an added drainage element. If you've driven Grove Street or you haven't lately, take it tonight and look at the potholes on the bridge. That's related to inadequate and failing drainage on the bridge. So we asked them to put an alternate, the contractor in their potential contract to remove the catch basins, put in some new cross culverts, do some additional drainage work, so that we're not back here in 15 years talking about rebuilding the Grove Street Bridge yet again. So, in my opinion, my professional opinion to you is that it's a worthy additional expense. Do the work while you already have a contractor on site. It's a little bit extra money, but it should save us costs down the road. The second was the funding request for the Elm Street Bridge, and I'll jumped ahead a little bit because we've been here quite a while, but this is $471,723, $21,000 over the originally authorized construction estimate of $450,000. Still, the funding would come from the Bridges, Culverts, and Dams Expendable Trust. For those who are not familiar with these, this is money that's already been raised through the downtown TIF and through warrant articles over the last several years, so no direct impact of taxation. At this time, we have the money to do it. We could award the contract. We have been saving to this. You can imagine I was biting my tongue a little bit talking about savings. We've done a lot of saving in this town to prepare us for big projects like this, so we're not constantly borrowing money. The recommended contractor is Cold River Bridges. They were the apparent low bidder, but they're also a contractor we have experience with. I worked with them as the project manager for the Union Street Bridge project probably 10 years ago at this point. It's been a while, and they did a great job. We really appreciated their work. They did a nice job on that project. They have a great reputation locally. So what I'm asking for is to accept the bids and allow the town to enter into agreement with Cold River Bridges for the amounts that are given. Cold River's prices are slightly less. We have a couple additional costs related. Oftentimes you have that with public infrastructure. We've got to move some utilities around, overhead wires and things of that nature, some utility coordination, possibly some traffic control that we'll take in-house. But there's a cost to those elements too, which I've built into these proposals as well. So asking for authorization to accept Cold River's Bridge to do these projects, to do these projects, and allow us to enter into agreement with Cold River Bridges so that we can get going in June on Grove Street Bridge.
And you mentioned that this is the firm that did the Union Street Bridge up near the McDowell Dam part of town?
Yes.
Because that was a great job.
It was a good job, and I worked with many contractors on behalf of the town of Peterborough, and I did have a good experience with Cold River.
Any questions regarding these? We did look at the information you sent us. Anybody? I'd make a motion to authorize and to award the bid, and then also whatever else.
I need authorization to enter into agreement formally on behalf of the town.
On the Elm Street and Grove Street Bridge projects.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Excited to get them done. It's been a long time planning. We've been 5-7 years out on getting this going, so it'll be
Make it
great.
happen. When is it scheduled?
We'll start coordinating with the contractor as soon as we get under contract with him. And originally we put this out for a June start. June for one bridge. We spec'd out the Grove Street Bridge to start June, July, and then August to take the Elm Street Bridge site. But my understanding is that they're actually eager to start even sooner, which may be helping them later in the construction season. So it'd be great to get them in town and going as soon as possible.
Every time I drive over one of those.
They're in really rough shape. So obviously we've been a little hesitant to do a lot of patchwork. It's also still kind of winter, kind of spring at this point, so it's sort of wasted money to be constantly filling with cold patch, which we're trying not to do, and knowing we had contractors hopefully coming in, and we're uncertain about when they might start. We've kind of ridden out these.
So this is gonna fix the potholes?
This is a complete refurbishing of both the bridges, yes. The potholes on both of those bridges are related to basically failing drainage adjacent to and a failing vapor membrane, similar to a vapor membrane like on your roof. They failed on both bridges. They're both at about that age, and maybe the town 20 years ago wasn't really thinking right about drainage considerations, so yes. Going forward, when these are done next winter, you won't encounter this when you get to February, March like we had the last several years.
On Grove Street,
On both.
on both.
Substantial drainage upgrades to Elm Street Bridge as well, which is also in terrible shape, and if you've walked that sidewalk anytime in the last several years, you'll know that the concrete's spalling, the curbing is coming is being undermined as well, so. These are great projects, that will be a nice upgrade for the community.
Great, because besides water, that's the only thing people care about, otherwise they're potholes.
Well, the Facebook crowd is gonna be ecstatic.
They will be- Bring that back to them.
I will.
Okay, great news.
I'm excited to get them going. Thank you for the authorization.
And the lead service line inventory grant?
I think Justine's going
I
to
have
speak to
that.
that.
Oh, excellent.
This is the lead service line inventory grant. We were awarded $60,000. And this is to assist with identifying the material of the service lines that were listed as unknown in their initial submission back in 2024.
And these are just from people that submitted,
No, this is
but this
the,
is from the town?
Yes.
This is related to the
Yes.
original EPA program where we're now mandated to evaluate the entire water system to identify any sources of lead. So when she said unknown, sorry to fill in the blanks here, but
That's fine.
Justine's kind of picked up and has been running with this and has been doing a great job. It means that there's a lot of different areas that we couldn't extrapolate the information through when it was built. And we actually have to physically in the field do some work and investigative work to determine the age and the materials of the pipe. So DES still has some grant money available that's supporting the town's labor to do this work ongoing. So the last couple of years, many people have seen us out digging up curb stops in front of their houses, and that's what we're doing. We're under an EPA mandate to do that. And it's not Peterborough specific, this is nationwide.
Was that 60 or 16?
60.
Zero. In case anyone watching.
Rather than hiring consultancy, we've used that to offset our own labor costs. So that's been money that goes back to the enterprise fund to offset our labor costs for our staff to be in the field and use our equipment.
And this is an application for a grant, or it's the grant agreement?
It's
we're
the
accepting?
grant, yeah, so you need to accept and enter into agreement with NHDS and authorize Nicole to sign on the town's behalf.
So moved.
I'll second that. Bill will move it. All right,
Okay.
all those in favor? Great. No more lead. Change out your lead fillings while you're at it. If you have cabinets. Okay, where are we going back? Vote to recommend, not recommend to warrant articles?
Sure. So there's 2 new petition warrant articles.
Is there someone here to speak on these articles? Dan, thank you for waiting around.
My pleasure. My name is Dan Gross, and I'm here to support the 2 warrant articles. These are citizen petitions that were submitted. We received roughly twice the number of minimum votes for them. I'm happy to go over the specifics in detail, but in the spirit of the late evening, I could keep it short as well. So how would you like me to proceed?
I know these 2 are participants in this petition, correct? Am I correct?
No, I didn't sign it.
Yes, you did.
Did I? I saw your name.
I saw your name.
So your whole family?
I saw your
Was it
family.
late in the evening? Oh, that's right, that's right. Yeah, I think the petitions as they're written are self-explanatory, and I
Yeah.
can't imagine that we would want to argue with that.
Yeah.
So unless there are
Thank you, Dan.
any more questions, we could keep it short, and I'm happy to answer or go into more details if you want.
I don't see anybody here walking like this, so who's gonna make a, oh, so, all right.
So you just need to
on
vote to recommend.
Article 23, how does the select board vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And Article 24, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you very much.
Unanimous, thank you.
Important stuff.
What do we have
Where
now?
would you like to go now?
We're done with everything that isn't in the public hearing.
Correct, so
All
we
right,
can
at
go.
this time, I would like to make a motion to reconvene the public hearing. Would I can motion that?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, back in the public hearing,
We have
considering,
the sewer chapter, the water chapter, and the right to know chapter left to consider.
how do we handle the sewer and water chapter? Clearly, we're gonna change those rates. It's clear. We've heard compelling cases, obviously, people are very concerned.
My recommendation is that because unless you make a decision tonight, it's unlikely you're going to change the rate structure or the rates before the next billing. You can adopt it tonight, adopt the changes tonight, even one way or the other, the rates aren't going to change. It's just for clarity's sake, in the code book, the rates in the code book will match the rates that were already voted on by the select board back in June. And then I will make a concerted effort to remember that I need to change the code book as soon as the select board votes the next time around. I missed it last time, that was my fault.
And we're putting it, we're gonna do this in a month, right? But how many
You
meetings?
will-
What are our meetings?
So your next meeting is April 7th.
Is
That's
that deliberative session?
That's a deliberative session, and then the next meeting in April is the third Tuesday.
21st.
I don't look at my calendar right now, it's all.
I
Yeah, it's the
mean, my
21st.
view on it is that we've gone years and years without this being updated with the rate in the code. I just think, I hear what you're saying, Nicole. I just think I'm not supportive of voting them in at this point, given that this is a dynamic situation and we're going to address it.
If you would like to consider the rest of, I would recommend that you consider the rest of those chapters, though, because there are changes that are relevant to referring people to the correct section of laws that they need to refer to for upgrading systems. There's an entire section of the water chapter that had to do with our emergency response and hazard mitigation plan that I think would be instructive to any terrorist activity that I would like to remove from the code book and the town's website. And there's a few other sections, so we can walk through those if you like. But you have had a chance to look at them.
Yeah.
I'm on the other side of it where I feel like that it was a misstep to not put the rates in when we voted them in June. That's a bad mistake, actually, because all along, someone could be looking at the code book and saying, hey, these rates are this, why is my bill this? So I think it really should be codified right now, and we definitely are going to take it up again.
Yeah,
So
I don't
know
think it does any harm, and quite frankly, I would be very surprised if people actually do go and look at it.
Well, I mean, I went back, just to be honest here, I went back when I saw that rate, $40.58 per 1,000 cubic feet. That's .04058. I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So I actually did a chat GPT. Like, what the heck? And it went back to the 90s.
Yeah.
So I just like,
You
know.
know how much water you're using by ChatGPT?
I'm just
A
saying,
diminishing resource?
yeah, I'm just saying, this has been really something that has not really been codified for a very long time.
Can we put a meter on people's houses and who's using ChatGPT and then go and fill the water? Of course, the water's not local.
I think it's important
So-
that we make the changes that she suggests. We could vote to leave any modification to the rates out if we want to do that, but I think a lot of the other.
The other things I'm okay with.
Yeah.
The one thing that I do have a question, so I'm okay with a lot of things that you mentioned, Nicole.
Okay.
The one thing that I do have a question about that seemed low, and so maybe you can address this, where the connection fees seemed very low. Very low.
I don't know if you're a contractor.
I don't, those were a modest increase, as asked by our utility superintendent, who's not here tonight, understanding that there's a temperature around water rates at this time, but to your point, are significantly low, and I think the towns, and I'm sort of trying to read between the lines, having not been here for the last 30 years, recognizes connection fees or user fees, or however you want to call them, as a potential barrier to development. So it's really a philosophical discussion, once again, on what should that be and who should pay that fee.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I just like, have we taken the time to benchmark our connection fees with other towns, other municipalities? I just generally understand that in general, they are much higher. And so, yes, they are, other places. And
Significantly so in some places.
Significantly so. So I just feel like I appreciate, and you heard me earlier, I do support economic development, and from a pure competitive standpoint, like, we can still be competitive and have something that is closer to kind of standard cost for connection fees generally speaking. That's what I'm coming.
Understood. It's hard to compare, as you know, apples to apples water systems. Every communities, we have that conversation every year through the budget. It's hard to compare even one police department to the next. There's so many variations, but I don't think it would be a particularly difficult analysis for us to at least pull some communities together and give you some level of data to suggest. So if you want to skip over connection fees too, I think that was Nate's mindset there was these haven't been touched in a very, very long time. These are definitely too low. We should bring these up at least a little bit. It helps to our prior conversations that David was also hinting at about our long-term need to establish some kind of a little bit more robust fund for the enterprise fund for the, you didn't say the number, $15+ million of investment that you as a community are looking at water mains alone over the next.
Yeah, so I would like to pass on the connection
That would have been
fees.
pertinent to the conversation of a room full of people that are looking only at this quarter's water bill. I mean, that's,
So-
you tend to forget, and this is what happened for decades. It just got ignored. No one wanted to raise any taxes, no one wanted to do the projects, and we're finally ticking these projects off, and they're costing us an arm and a leg because we waited so long for them. And, and then we run into the wall here of not really getting that. So,
I would just like.
and it's hard to sell, sure, knocking on everybody's door and saying, hey, this is what's gonna happen. Because, people are busy and
I just would like, if I could.
I was just gonna offer the suggestion, we're gonna have to come back to look at building fees in the future. We could take up connection fees at the same time as building fees.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Because I would really like if you could bring some data
Yeah.
to us on that.
Yep.
That would be really helpful.
I think you'll find that those fees are likely for similar sized communities considerably more money than we're charging at this time.
Yep.
and so we're gonna leave old rates in the code.
I would suggest updating the rates for now and then revisiting it again when building fees.
Because it's inaccurate right now.
It
It's
is.
lying right now. And the current rate is what it is. We're not changing it tonight. So it's not, it will change.
Okay, so you
It
want,
may go up. I'm not gonna try to bite my tongue, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to accept the amendments as written, disqualifying the connection fee rate change.
for water and sewer?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for the record, most of it was administrative or technical information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Changing office hours,
Yeah.
removal of URLs and NHDES regulations that don't exist anymore. I mean, as far as we could tell, we didn't think these sections had been updated in 18, 20 plus years.
I mean, I don't think it's been touched. I think it goes back to maybe 3 public works directors at this point since they were last on.
Well, that's kind of like this rate.
Exactly. It's taken a long time to get someone to look at it, and I really appreciate that Nate took the time to go through both of these very closely and, made sure that it's reflective of what it needs to say. Okay.
All right, motion seconded, all those in favor? Great.
So a lot of men read
Yeah,
There's a lot
there
of
was a
red.
lot of reading. And then we had the right to know.
Yes.
You want
This is
to give us
I'm happy to.
a class on how
Right
you
to
want to
know.
right to know for all the people watching?
So New Hampshire's right to know law is essentially the exact same thing as the Freedom of Information Act request on the federal level. Under the right to know law, any resident, any citizen of New Hampshire has the right to request to inspect governmental records. And then there are certain exceptions to that, but they're very limited. For the most part, any request has to be complied with within once the request is received, the municipality has 5 business days to respond to the request. We have to give an estimate as to how long it will take to produce those. Well, we first have to determine whether or not the records exist. Sometimes they don't. How long it will take to produce those records, what format they're in, and then set up an appointment with the individual so that they can come back and take a look at them. So, in the past, the town has not really had guidelines that's set up, for the public to understand. This is what the right to know request process looks like in Peterborough. We have effectively followed the 2015 Attorney General's memorandum of understanding on the right to know law. And when questioned, we referred people to that. A lot has changed since 2015, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years. There's been a lot of case law that's been made regarding the right to know law. And so I asked town attorney if he had a model guideline that we could adopt. He presented me with this. I made a handful of changes to that, and I am suggesting this to the select board as a wholesale replacement of the current chapter.
We'll read through it. Is that your motion and your second? Accepted?
Yeah, you heard
it. All those in favor? Aye. Yeah, good work on that.
Thank you. It's really all Eric. He did a great job with that.
Great, oh, good.
I think that's it.
I think it is.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Less
You're-
than 3 hours.
That's it? That's all there?
Well, I wasn't going drinking on St. Patty's Day, so
Well, at least you wore
Oh,
the ring.
that's right.
I
yeah.
didn't do that.
Well, I'm Irish. I used to have that.
I carry my name with me everywhere I go.
So, yeah, thanks for sticking around, everyone. That was a
Motion to
robust
adjourn.
conversation. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you. Do you guys want to sign the minutes?